Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Barb Van Hoy, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to our 2022 Annual Action Plan meeting about affordable housing. Thank you so much for taking your time, especially on a Saturday, to be with us. This meeting and the Annual Action Plan is brought to you by the Community Development Division at the City of Colorado Springs. And our mission is to create strong, sustainable, and inclusive communities and quality affordable homes for all people in Colorado Springs. We manage the annual federal entitlement grants from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, to address the needs of low and moderate income residents, neighborhoods, and businesses in Colorado Springs. The Annual Action Plan is a formal document that lays out how we plan to use those funds to address the priority needs and goals that we've identified in the 5-year consolidated plan for our community. We hold these public meetings. This is our 4th this week. We hold them every year to really hear from residents and advocates about what people are experiencing now to help ensure that our plan is relevant to the needs of our community as they are currently. So we really hope that you will share with us your experiences and ideas about what our neighborhoods, what our residents most need right now to do with housing and any of the other topics that our action plan covers. So all of these meetings this week are being recorded, and they will be available on our Annual Action Plan webpage, which I will paste in the chat box in just a minute. Now I'd like to introduce Catherine Duarte. She is Senior Analyst in the Community Development Division, and she will talk about the meeting structure and walk us through the Annual Action Plan and affordable housing activities. Catherine, welcome.
Hi there. Thank you so much. Barb, I'm resharing my my presentation.
Okay, let me get that up.
See that? Thank you so much. As Barb mentioned, I'm Catherine Duarte. Been with the Community Development Division for about 5 years, and I'm always really excited to do these public hearings just to hear from people as we prepare our annual action plans. Just before I get started on what we're trying to cover today, I want to talk a little bit do some housekeeping and talk a little bit about how folks can participate. If you are joining on your desktop or on your phone, please use the Q&A box for questions, comments, reactions, requests. Feel free to use it while we're speaking. We will have a Q&A section at the end, but you are more than welcome to use the Q&A box throughout the whole presentation. If you are also on your desktop, you are muted, so that's why the Q&A box is the best way to communicate with us. If you are on your phone, and when we get to the second half of the meeting to have our Q&A session, you can absolutely unmute yourself and ask a question then by pressing *6. And also, if you're on the phone or even if you're on your desktop and you want to check out the slides that we're sharing today, we will be sharing them on our website, coloradosprings.gov/community-development. So you can always go back and check out the presentation at your own convenience and send any follow-up questions to the email address listed here, communitydevelopment@coloradosprings.gov. And you can also just call us and leave a voicemail for us with any thoughts and reactions to our presentation at 719-385-5912. You can also watch this presentation live with subtitles, closed captioning in several different languages. If you just press on the gear icon on your screen, you can check it out in different languages. Anyway, today, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us on a Saturday morning, and I'd also like to acknowledge the staff members who are with us and helping things run smoothly. You heard from Barb Van Hoy, our policy analyst, and we also will be having a couple folks from our staff to help things run smoothly and hopefully answer questions that may come up about some of the content that we're going to cover today. So, today's goals, we'll talk about what's going into the 2022 action plan. If you're curious about what the action plan is and how that feeds into our 5-year plan, we have some materials on our website that explain the planning framework. But today we really want to talk about the funds and the strategies that go into affordable housing and how we really put your grant dollars to work and how we leverage other tools and resources to accomplish our plans. We'll go over what we hope to accomplish this coming program year. And most importantly, we want to hear from you. All of this content is to give you context about how we, what these, the funds that we receive from housing and urban development, what they're supposed to be used for, and how we leverage that with other resources. Your feedback is incredibly important, and we make a very concerted effort to take what you're experiencing and take the urgent community needs and incorporate that into the plan. And then we'll talk about how to follow the planning process and make sure that everything is captured, and that as we move into our 2022 action plan, that it's truly a community-driven plan. So before we can talk about what we're going to do, I wanted to talk about the money, how much money we're talking about, and why we have to plan for this. So when we talk about expected resources, we're really talking about the federal funds and income that we receive from investments that we've made from those funds. So all of our funding comes from the federal government through entitlement grants from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the majority of our funding comes through 3 signature programs: the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is the oldest block grant program from the 70s. And that comes, that makes up the majority of our entitlement. It's about a little more than half of our expected resources in any given year. In 2022, we're expecting a little over $3.5 million from Cdbg. That's a very flexible program. It covers a lot of different activities. Jurisdictions have the flexibility to choose from a variety of activities to meet their own community's need. And we'll talk about how Colorado Springs chose the activities under Cdbg in a second. The second program is Home Investment Partnerships, just known as HOME. And that's the second largest program. And that is really our main affordable housing creation budget. It covers new construction for multifamily apartments, for all types of homes, but new construction, tenant-based rental assistance, down payment assistance programs, funds for community development, community developers that create affordable housing. And then the smallest slice is ESG, short for Emergency Solutions Grant. That's our the only fund that's strictly dedicated to serving those who are experiencing homelessness or those at risk of homelessness. It is the smallest piece of the pie at a little over $250,000. So that is we have to be very strategic with those, but there are a couple elements in that program that address housing, and we'll talk about those. And then the last bit of the pie is program income, which is revenue from previous investments used with our federal funds, and that's through financing housing projects, home loans, things like that. So altogether, we're looking at a budget of $6.2 million, and we'll talk about how we deploy those resources from the different programs to address affordable housing. The first program that I mentioned, the Cdbg program, we split it into 5 different activities, and that was established in our 5-year planning program, or 5-year planning document. So the 2 activities that really address affordable housing through the Cdbg program is really public services, an activity that's designed to support nonprofits in their operations, and through affordable housing activities. CDBG is not really meant for new construction, so that pot of funding, which is a little over a third of the CDBG allocation, goes to home rehabilitation and preservation efforts. So just to break that down a little bit more, the affordable housing activity of CDBG, that is the biggest piece of our CDBG pie, just given the sheer need out there. So the coming year, we're expecting about $1.2 million for this activity. And that covers projects like housing rehab for homeowners and renters. That includes things like ADA modifications to ensure that older folks can stay in their homes longer. Or, you know, for low-income households who have a member of their family who has a disability and they really need to make their home more accessible to them, to their own family members. Essential weatherizing utilities are a huge cost for households, and anything that we can do to make houses run more efficiently is a huge plus and helps make people's housing costs much more affordable. Whenever we go into homes and find that there is the presence of lead, these funds also go towards lead abatement in these projects. Basically, any type of urgent structural repairs that would prevent somebody living in their home and compromises the health and safety of a household living there. That's what these funds go towards. It really is a key piece of preserving the affordable housing stock and making sure that people can live in their homes longer, because as we all know, it's not feasible to sell and find another place that you can afford. These projects also help developers who are interested in adaptive reuse. That's taking one building that was meant for one use, like office space, and adapting it and rehabbing it so it can become residential. As I mentioned before, the CDBG housing piece is really essential for preservation efforts. New construction is generally not eligible, and we'll talk about what does cover new construction. The other piece of CDBG that addresses affordable housing is more towards the services, and that's our public services activity. This year, we're expecting a little over $500,000 in that slice. So examples of housing services that we fund and have definitely funded in the past are housing navigation, housing counseling, fair housing activities, emergency rent and mortgage payments. This, of course, is we'll talk about some other rent assistance programs that we have active right now. And legal services, funding legal representation for low-income tenants in housing disputes and unjust evictions. Emergency Solutions Grant, the ESG program, as I mentioned, that is to serve those experiencing homelessness. And as I mentioned, that is the smallest allocation, but there are a few elements of that program that prevent homelessness or quickly quickly put people who are experiencing homelessness into a permanent housing situation. And those are homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing programs. Those are for folks making the less, what we call very low income, extremely low income, less than 30% of AMI. And we'll talk about what those income thresholds look like in practical terms later. And then lastly, the Home Investment Partnerships program and our program income. Those are the two pots of funding that really go towards our construction efforts. These funds typically help finance multifamily projects that have long-term affordability baked into it. That's part of the requirement of these funds. As soon as these funds are involved in any sort of project, it's a guaranteed 20-year affordability period, which makes these funds so impactful and so powerful in creating and maintaining affordable housing stock in any community. As I mentioned, these funds are also for new construction of homes for home ownership. And currently we work with Habitat for Humanity to help make that happen. We're always looking for more opportunities to create more home ownership opportunities for folks. These funds can also help low-income families and first-time home buyers with their down payment. We work with local land trust community land trust to make that happen. And lastly, we have a tenant-based rental assistance, which is a rental subsidy to get folks into safe and permanent housing and offers up to 2 years of assistance. And the program income that has to go towards eligible projects, and we always feed it into new housing projects. So I just mentioned a lot of different programs. There's a lot of different ways that these funds get distributed into the community. Just really quick high level, if you're interested in any of these, the Cdbg Public Services and ESG funds, those are awarded to nonprofits and other eligible agencies that serve low-income populations and people experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. Typically, those go through a competitive application every year. They're highly vetted. Folks have to be have pretty substantial financial and organizational capacity to carry out these funds. And if you have any questions, I have the name and email address of our project manager who oversees those programs. You can email Naomi Clark at naomi.clark@coloradosprings.gov. As far as the housing efforts that we, some of the projects that project types that I listed, we do direct awards to what we call single source providers. We work closely with Brothers Redevelopment, who is active all over the state, and they have a local office here to do homeowner rehab. And if you're interested in accessing these services, we have their contact info on our housing resources page on our website. We also partner very closely with the Colorado Springs Housing Authority, and we use those Cdbg home rehab funds to help them modify a lot of their public housing units to make them more ADA accessible. One of the biggest needs in our community is affordable housing units for people with disabilities, and we're more than happy to help expand the inventory of those units. And all other affordable housing projects with these funds go through an ongoing competitive application process, and anybody interested in that can visit our affordable housing developer portal on our website, and you can put in and register yourself with Neighborly and peruse the application to see what's required. And the same goes for the home investment partnerships projects. For any new construction projects, there is a highly competitive process. We do go through a pretty substantial underwriting process for all projects to make sure that it's a strong project and that the project owner can provide long-term affordability to our target populations. And when I talk about low-income populations and we talk about affordable housing, it seems very instinctive to people what that might be. But of course, in our world, we have a very, we have thresholds for these things. So when we talk about affordable housing in community development, when we're working with HUD funds, we're really talking about these thresholds that you see on your screen. You might hear us use the acronym AMI, Area Median Income, and that's a number that is location specific. It's calculated every year by HUD. And right now in 2021, the Colorado Springs metro area median income is $82,400 a year for a 4-person household. So when we look at affordable housing projects, we're looking at how many units can you make available to folks at 80% AMI, 60% AMI, 30% AMI. And those are HUD thresholds for low income, moderate income, very low income. when we're looking at 30% AMI, these are folks who are exiting homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And if you're looking at a 4-person household, that's a total income of a little over 24,000. So I wanted to include this because a lot of our conversations about AMI are really, they sound really abstract, but having a total income number for folks is probably more concrete. So in addition to grant funds, we have a variety of tools at our disposal. We have bond issuing authority by using private activity bonds to help finance affordable housing projects. We also lean on using the LIHTC program that the State Housing Finance Authority administers, the low-income housing tax credits. Usually we try to support projects that have been awarded tax credits through this program and create another source of financing. We're working on creating local development incentives that I'll talk about in a little bit. And we also try to take advantage of other pandemic response programs like ERAP, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program funds that are available to all Colorado residents. And Colorado Springs, our allocation for that program is monitored by the state, but we definitely have a lot of local partners making sure that Colorado Springs residents get the rental assistance they need. And we try to leverage all of these resources with you know, the construction and services projects that we manage. And we also track those projects that get support through the El Paso County Housing Trust Fund. If you want to know a little bit more about our strategy behind using all of these resources and tools and what populations we prioritize and different innovative strategies that we are embracing, I strongly recommend going to our Affordable Housing Plan website for Home COS, coloradosprings.gov/Home COS. So I'd like to brag a little bit about some of the accomplishments that our team and our partners have made in the last year, and show exactly where we're making a difference. We strongly believe that affordable housing is necessary in all parts of the city. We are limited to funding projects that are brought forward to us. So the development community is, you know, as they get viable projects together, we really try to reward projects that show diversity in where they're located, among other things. So this map here shows you just, it's a kind of scattering of projects in different phases throughout the city, and it's showing where things are happening right now. That doesn't mean this is where all affordable housing is located. It means this is what these are projects that we're involved with currently. So right now, there are 845 units actively under construction. I've listed the projects here, both on the map of Colorado Springs that you see here, a few in the central, southeast, and northern corridor of North Academy. So I tried to list target population where they're determined. If they don't have a target population listed next to the project, it means anybody who income qualifies. You'll see the last one, the commons, the target population is for folks earning less than 30% AMI. That is our community's newest permanent supportive housing project. That would be our community's second right now. And this is a form of housing that is desperately needed to get people out of homelessness and permanently housed and get them the services that they need. We have an additional 1,200 units in development right now in various phases of development. And that's a little more, you'll see by the map, one kind of far north near the Air Force Academy, another one on North Academy. But these are also kind of closer into the city center and several in Southeast Colorado Springs. And the target population here is pretty diverse for these projects. We have some veteran projects, some projects for low-income seniors, and the majority are for workforce housing. So we have a lot of things kind of happening in the pipeline right now that will, bleed into our 2022 goals. A lot of these projects will lease up as we enter the 2022 program year. So I just wanted to share what our goals are, as these multifamily projects are finishing construction and leasing up. We have other affordable housing related goals that are very much tied to the mayor's goal of creating 1,000 affordable units a year, and are also embedded in our affordable housing plan, Home COS. So those top two goals this year is really to create and unveil a new development offset program to lower barriers for developers who are interested in building more affordable housing. And that is a complex partnership between lots of different actors. So we can't do anything in the affordable housing realm without lots of partnership and lots of collaboration. Same goes for creating more home ownership opportunities. As I mentioned, we have several tools at our disposal to support homeowners, either through down payment assistance or through construction. So we're always looking for more partners. And then lastly, I have your input here because we're still in the middle of putting this plan together. It takes a couple months to put this draft together. And as Barb said, this is the last of 4 public meetings, and we're constantly, chatting with people. We do one-on-one interviews. We do these virtual meetings. We try to meet community members where they are by speaking at local events, hearing from different stakeholders. So as you're learning about our goals and what our funds can do, and what you're seeing in the community, we'd love to hear from you. So with that said, I'm done with my presentation, and I just want to hear what folks out there are seeing. And I have some prompts here on the screen. For those of you listening on the phone, I have a few questions that I'd love to hear what you all think about. It's what are you seeing and experiencing out in the community? How can we make equitable outcomes a reality? Do our annual goals that I just went over, do they make sense? What are you seeing that's working out there in the housing world, and what's not working? And then, of course, just if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns, I would love to hear what people are thinking in the chat. And if you're on the phone, please feel free to unmute yourself, press *6, and let us know what you think. I do know that there is a bit of a delay as we're on this Microsoft Teams platform. So while people are thinking of things, I just wanted to share the schedule of things as we put our 2022 program year together. As I mentioned, it takes a couple months to put this together. We have begun putting the draft together. We've been going out into the community, talking with folks, putting this this presentation and these recordings out to get some feedback and questions. We will be putting the draft 2022 annual action plan out for public review on December 13th. So you can check our website for that. And then in January, we'll have another public meeting to go over any questions that people have, hear people's feedback on what's in the plan. And then in February, hopefully Council will approve the draft plan. After that, we hope to hear from Congress and HUD on what the federal budget looks like and what the allocations are to different HUD grantees. And then in the spring, our grant application for those public service projects that I mentioned earlier, the Cdbg Public Services and ESG grants, that application period will open in the spring. And then on April 1st, our program year starts. What this timeline means for housing development projects is it's fairly, it doesn't make quite the difference that it does for public services. We know that housing development projects take months, years from the planning period to lease up. So we do take housing development applications as they come in because it takes a fair amount of vetting and talking over and going through the local permitting processes. Takes a while to apply for other resources like tax credits, things like that. So this is more just for planning our resources on a 12-year program year timeline. So that just is a little bit about us, and I'll go back to the questions and see if we have anything in the Q&A box.
Hey, Catherine, this is Barb. So we're having a little funny technology thing. There was a question from someone named Joe. It's now not showing, but basically Joe was asking about whether any of the affordable housing developments are mixed income and kind of what that means. And his comment was that, for example, with affordable housing in the Southeast, that has, wanted to be careful about ghettoizing or, sort of like pushing folks or keeping folks in, low income areas. So if you could address that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a very fine line that we try to keep in mind while we vet projects in the underwriting process. And also just kind of the reality of some of these projects. Our funds don't necessarily, well, first we'll start with the underwriting. As the fair housing, I guess, administrator for the city, we have a very important responsibility to make sure that that creating density, what do they call them? I want to say densities of poverty, but we don't want to, that's exactly what we want to avoid. So in order to encourage equitable development of affordable housing in all neighborhoods, one of the things that we look at in the underwriting process is to learn how they came up with their location. Are there good schools? Are there amenities like open space and parks? And it's not just a look at local socioeconomic needs. It's really a holistic look at what does a family need to be successful. So we really want to encourage these projects in all parts of the community, and our scoring system reflects that. And I believe that the LIHTC scoring might support that as well. I can't speak as authoritatively on the LIHTC scoring as I can with our own, but that's something that we do in the front end. And then the nature of our financing is that maybe not all of the units will be available to 60% AMI or 30% AMI, but it may be just a handful, or it may just be a smaller number of low-income units available in a larger project where where some of the units are market rate. I can't really give you an example of a project right now under construction that reflects that. I don't know if any one of my colleagues who's on the call can answer that particular question, but I can say that that is mixed income projects are a goal of ours to make them more common in the throughout the city, and that avoiding concentrations of poverty is something that we absolutely look at before we commit any funding to a project. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Catherine. I don't think right now seeing more questions coming through, but we absolutely welcome them. As anyone else is thinking about or typing in a question, just a reminder, maybe a little bit of a broken record, but we really do want to hear as much input and feedback from residents and community members and advocates as possible. We really do take this input and it makes a difference in how the plan comes together. So even after this event, we welcome input by phone or email. Please do continue to share your ideas and thoughts, and sharing, letting other people know who really care about this issue or have been impacted by affordable housing challenges, to please share their thoughts and ideas with us.
And I do apologize for the platform's inability to, if you're on the phone, you can unmute yourself pressing *6, but if you're on your desktop, the Q&A box is the only source. And we just really appreciate everyone's attendance. Despite that, we with numbers are the way they are locally, and with our many of our partners working with vulnerable communities, we decided to keep our public hearings virtual for now. So we really appreciate people's patience with not being able to ask questions face to face. I really miss that too. So thanks for sending, Joe, thanks for sending your question through the Q&A box. And for anyone else who's watching this after the fact, we have an open door policy. Feel free to email us, call us with any questions that come out of watching this presentation. As I mentioned, our draft will go out December 13th, and we will make sure that everyone's comments and questions are recorded in that draft, and we'll make sure people know how their feedback was incorporated.
This is Barb. I'll just give one last plug for our email newsletter. So we do share the process. We'll be letting everyone know when the recordings are available. It should be no later than the end of next week, but probably earlier. And we'll also be sending reminders out about the other milestones in the action plan process. And we share all kinds of other information about opportunities, ways to get help, or ways to access and learn about our funding through that newsletter. So please, if you're not already a subscriber, please do subscribe. The link is in the chat, and you can also find it on our website.
Thanks, Barb.
Well, as we're not seeing, I don't think any more questions come through, we can go ahead and wrap this up. Unless, Catherine, do you have anything else you want to share? Again, we really appreciate everyone taking the time.
No, I don't think so, but I know that these are, this is a fluid situation. I know that with the emergency rental assistance programs, we're working very closely with service providers to make sure that folks who are in a bind with rent make sure that they avoid eviction and get the rental assistance they need. I think my any last comments would just be a plug to definitely take advantage of the emergency rental assistance program that is offered by DOLA. And all Colorado Springs residents, there's still plenty of funding out there for our residents. We're talking in the millions. So if you're struggling and if you've been affected by COVID in any way, you don't have to wait until you have an eviction notice. Go out there and ask for help. I know that you know, all the eviction moratoria have been lifted. Most of the protections, the pandemic relief related protections have been lifted. So if you're struggling in any way with your rent, there's definitely money out there for you. So call 211 to get set up if you need help with technology. It is a 100% online application, unfortunately, but we do have our local United Way is ready to assist anybody who needs rental assistance and get your application together and submitted to the state. You're eligible for up to 15 months of rental assistance, going back to the start of the pandemic. So if you're looking for back rent paid or rent paid, future rent up to 3 months at a time, for as long as the pandemic is with us, please go out there and seek assistance.
Hey, Catherine.
Yes.
We did actually have one other question come through, which is also a great relevant topic. And that question is, will there be any focus on making housing units green or energy efficient? Rapid growth of the city puts a strain on resources, especially water. I know we've talked about this. I don't know if you have any detailed information to share about that.
Oh, I wish I had really detailed information. I do have general information, which is that any energy efficient qualities or aspects to your building project are definitely scored favorably in the underwriting process locally. I can also speak just as a planner and knowing just generally studying the different kind of consumption rates by size of unit. Multifamily units in general consume less water. They don't have yards. They don't have a big footprint. So in general, these multifamily complexes are in terms of water usage much less consumers of water resources than a single family home. But in terms of kind of building technology and using, LEED technology, we would love to see that happen. And again, this is totally based on what the development community brings forward to us to score and finance. So to that, I'll tell you that we would score them higher for energy efficiency, but we just need to see that come from the development community. I hope that answers it on a general question or on a general basis. I wish I had more details about what those criteria are for LIHTC and for our own underwriting.
Yeah, I guess the main upshot is that we are incentivizing that we are trying to make that easier and cheaper for developers.
Yeah. right, well, I don't see any other questions coming in. We have our email address and our phone number listed here. Please reach out if you have any questions about what you heard today or about our goals.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Catherine, for all that information. And we hope everyone has a great rest of your Saturday and weekend. Again, let us know if you have more ideas.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Barb, Christy,
welcome.
Naomi, all of our staff members who are helping out. Thank you very much.